Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be another shoebill video. I'm going to go through how I made the shoebill. It's the second one that I made for commission. So this is the head that I sculpted. The sculpting video will be over on my Patreon if you want to know how I did everything. It's a little bit different from the first one, but what I've used is Sculpey Original. That's the white Sculpey, and it's a polymer clay. And I've also sculpted it in two parts. So the top one is obviously the head, and the bottom part is the movable jaw. So I have a movable jaw video tutorial in my shop or on my Patreon. There's two avenues you can get it. So check it out and yeah, see if you like it or not. So once it's been baked and ready to go, I usually prime all my pieces with a primer. It's a canvas primer, but I think it works really well for polymer clays and resins. You normally have to prime things before you paint it, just because the surfaces are a little bit slippery and it can make the paint sort of come off a little bit. So this helps it really adhere to the surface a little bit better. So what I'm doing is just painting everything before I put the doll together, especially inside the mouth before I put that movable joint in. So I'm painting it pretty much the same as what reference photos you find on Google. I usually have reference photos next to me to make sure I'm doing things correctly and painting things the right way or sculpting things the right way. So I'm just going over with some acrylic water-based paint and just roughly painting in all of those sections. For the jaw, it usually needs a couple of layers of paint, so it's like a multi-dimensional paint process. Start off with the lighter yellow, and then I start building up all of the orangey colors and the blacks and the grays. I also add a little bit of detailing, so little spots and stuff that you can see on the reference pictures on the bill and inside the mouth. with a little bit of black paint, and also adding some more details around all of the crevices and the edges of things with the black paint as well, colouring in the nostril, adding some grey around the edges as well, and also some white to create sort of that calcified look that you can find on their bills. Once the painting's done, I can leave it across the side to dry, and I can start working on the legs. So the legs are made up of a thicker armature and a smaller armature for the toes. I've created this armature myself, and you can find the tutorial on my Patreon if you're interested. I'm also using Cosclay to sculpt these feet because I want the toes to have some posability to it. Cosclay I have like a love-hate relationship with because it's a bit difficult to work with, but the results are really good. So it took me a little while to sculpt these feet, and it's mainly because the Cosclay is just so difficult to condition, but I'm definitely going to get some new formula and try that out and see if I like that. Once that's all sculpted up, I can then put it in the oven to bake for half an hour, I think it is. And then once it's dry, I can start adding all the colouring to it. So I'm just using some acrylic water-based paint to paint the legs and leave that to dry overnight. Moving on to the faux fur. So I'm using the same faux fur as I used for the first one. It's like a grey colour and it has black tips on it. Really fine black tips. It's not too overwhelming. So I'm drawing out the pattern of the body that I'm going to be cutting out. It's a pretty loose pattern, so I can start refining it when I start sewing everything together. So I cut out with a small pair of sharp scissors. I'm just cutting out the larger bit at the moment so I can take it over and just start cutting it out over on my other desk. So this is the fur that I was talking about with the black tips on it, but you can see it's got a nice grey undertone to it. I actually don't have a lot of this fur left, so I probably won't be able to do another one after I've got another commission for another shoe bill. So I'm going to make that a little bit different again, try to make it a bit different so they're all have their own unique look to them. But I actually don't have all that much fur left of this one, and I don't know where I can find it again. So again, going in with a small pair of scissors to cut out the fabric, and then I can start putting it off to the side, and I'll be hand sewing everything on this body. So I'm going to go through the feathers that I have to do the wings. So the feathers go in one direction, so I'm sorting out which direction each feather goes, and that will be what I'll do on the wings. So I've tried to ethically source these ones. The website I got it from does say they're ethically sourced, so I hope they are. So once I've started with the wing, this is what it looks like when I've put 2 layers of feathers on. So I'm refining this process a bit more. I am going to do a tutorial on the wings, so I've got a lot of good footage of how I made these wings, so definitely stay tuned for that. So once both sides of the wings are pretty 80% done, I can start working on the body. So for these ones, I usually needle felt the bodies, and I use just polyfill. You don't need to use any alpaca fiber because it is quite expensive, but I think the polyfill works quite well as a needle felting tool anyway. It seems to work in similar fashion, and you're only going to be putting like a faux fur skin over the top. So if you want to know how I did the body on the previous one, I have it over on my Patreon as well, if the whole process, if you want to see what I do. So this takes a little bit of time to do the needle felting. I don't go too in depth and too crazy with the felting, just because I'm going to be covering it with fur anyway. So I just really want a basic shape of the body. So once that's pretty much done, I can always add some more polyfill when the skin is on, but I'm going to go ahead and start pinning the fabric over the body and start sewing everything together. So I can start with the sewing. With the sewing, I use a lattice stitch, and you want to get yourself a good quality thread as well. And that way it doesn't get caught up in the pile of the faux fur, and it's just a bit easier to sew with, and you can pull it a bit more and it's a bit stronger. So I use a Gutermann thread for all of my hand sewing or all of my machine sewing as well. I think it's a really good thread. But another option, if you want a stronger thread, is to source some upholstery thread, and that is a bit thicker and you can pull it really tight and it's almost impossible to break. So it takes this doll takes a little bit longer to sew because everything is hand sewed. It's the same with the proboscis monkey that I did. I spent a couple of days hand sewing the body, but I think it's all worth it in the end when you get a body that's a little bit more refined. So once that's sewn up, I can start gluing things together. So I use a tacky fabric glue that I get from my local store here called Spotlight in Australia, but you can find something in your local stores. It's just like a clear, thick, tacky fabric glue, and it works really well to adhere the faux fur to polymer clay or resin pieces. Always test out your pieces first to make sure how it reacts to the glues or paints or anything like that. And then just leave it to dry overnight to make sure it is nice and adhered. And then once everything's sewn up and glued together, I can start refining everything. So that's finishing off the wings, which I'm doing here with some extra faux fur bits. And it just really helps blend the body into the wings as well. Also adding fur to the face and making sure that it's blended in nicely with the bill and everything's covered, and it doesn't restrict the movement of the posable jaw. And then once that's done, I can start refining all of the little details with some paint. It's basically like a little bit of shading, and I think it brings a whole lot of character out into the doll and also the faces. You can do this for markings and everything, but it's a really important process to start refining all of the little details with some paints. Once that's done, I can add the tiny bits of feathers on top of the head. This really brings it a bit more lifelike. So this is the finishing touches I'm doing on this doll, these little feathery bits. It really makes it look like a shoe bill, I think. So I'm just picking in between the little bits of fur that I applied and adding the feathers in between. So that's pretty much the whole process of making this second shoe bill. I am doing a third shoe bill for a customer as a commission. Seems the shoe bills are pretty popular. They just take a while to make because of all the little movable parts and the cosplay, but I really like the results of these little shoe bills, and shoe bills are pretty cool animals, so stay tuned for that one. I have a proboscis monkey coming up for sale, and also a hammerhead bat that I've almost finished, but you can check out my shop at creaturesatnat.com for all these other little art dolls that are available, and paintings and lots of stuff, so check it out. Also, thanks to my patrons for supporting me, I really appreciate it. And also you can check that out at the link below. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook as well, Creatures of Nat, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.